Yo, what it do, 2K fans? It's your boy JuKING the Boss, and today we're going to talk about the Archetype system in 2K20. Now, there's no official news on the Archetype system just yet. Everybody's still waiting on that information, and as soon as that information drops, you already know I'm going to put together a nice little detailed video about what you can expect. But instead, we're going to look at the past 2K. Now, in order to figure out or try to estimate or try to speculate what the future Archetype system is going to be for 2K20, we need to look in the past and see what changes they made, how gradual these changes were. So that's what we're going to do. And then at the end of all this, I'm going to give you all my estimation of what to expect from the 2K20 Archetype system and a little bit of bonus information that I think the community would love to see happen with the Archetype system and just 2K20 in general. So let's dive into it. We're going all the way back to 2K14 to start this off. So the first one we're going to take a look at is 2K14's. Now, I'm only going back as far as this console generation. And the first one we saw was 2K14's attribute system. So when you created your build, you chose a position and you chose a starting play style. That play style didn't determine what you could become. It just determined what natural boost you start off with. So right here, you'll see we have an athletic center. That athletic center most likely had got a little bit of a jump in things like stamina, hustle, and maybe even speed and acceleration. Now, that's what I enjoyed about that in 2K14. Was that these things didn't determine how your character could develop or would develop to hit the max cap. Instead, they just determined what you were better at when you started off. And you could essentially add to anything and any individual stat line. Now, I know most likely that the reason why that changed was because of a couple of different things. One, in 2K14, you literally upgraded each stat individually. Okay, so it felt like one of the most convoluted things. You start off with something like you see on ball defense is 34, and let's say if you can get that all, if your attribute cap for that was 75. Now you could upgrade that by plus 10, and you could keep doing that until you get to that 75. But imagine having to do that for each and every stat. And I think that was one of the main things that caused them to change the way the attribute caps worked over time, or way that you applied your VC over time. Now, I didn't mind that. I thought it was really good. I thought it was like for real, if you're truly wanting to go in and, upgrade this specific stat. So if you look at it in 2K19's formula, I would much rather be able to upgrade my standing mid-range and my moving mid-range differently, as well as upgrade my contested mid-range differently. So maybe I'm a person who don't like to take contested shots. I like to find the best shots that are open. So I'm not going to really apply too much to my contested shots at the beginning. I'll work on that at the end. It's about being able to kind of spend your time wisely. And I wish they would return to that form a little bit, but they did adjust over the years. And so we're going to take a look at the next one. We're going to look at 2K15. So 2K15 changed the trend up a little bit. You still chose a play style and a position, but this time you was able to upgrade in groups. So you didn't have individual stats that you upgraded. You didn't have individual attributes that you upgraded. Instead, you was able to upgrade a group of attributes based on their factors. So you had your jump shooter, inside scorer, athlete, playmaker, rebounder, and defender. And here's what I liked about that, but at the same time, I also didn't like. So what I liked about that is that there was no cap on any one of these. So it's not to say that any one of these can get to 99 and everything, but what it meant was that you could upgrade one of these bars all the way to 25, upgrade another bar all the way to 25, upgrade another bar all the way to 25, and then you could say, okay, well, now I want to kind of balance the rest of this out. So you could effectively build sort of how you still wanted to build without being locked into an archetype. But here's the funny thing. This was the start, the true start of the archetype structure, because based on how you assigned your points, your type of build actually changed based on it. So you could be a pass first point. You could be a shoot first point. You could be a defensive point guard. You was able to do that based on how you spent your points. And as much as I didn't like the group attributes, I thought this was a really good beneficial thing for the community. So even though NBA 2K14 saw the introduction of personality badges and 2K15 saw the introduction of skill badges, 2K16 saw an introduction of badge levels, badge tiers. Now, I don't remember badge tiers being in 2K15, but in 2K16, you saw these different tiered badges, and that was the only real change to the structure of the system itself. You still had a free to upgrade and free to advance setup, and here's what I liked about that. So if you look at this kind of raw, fat, pass first two guard, you notice that he has nothing on the rebounding. Now, that's what I did enjoy in the previous 2Ks was I wasn't forced to add anything on rebounding. So I had a certain number of upgrades available. If I didn't want to add anything to rebounding, I didn't have to, especially if you're playing point guard, if you're playing two guard, you shouldn't be at the rim on rebounds. Like you probably only should be getting rebounds that bounce out your way. And that's where the competitive side of things go. You watch an NBA game, don't get me wrong, you'll see a guy like Russell Westbrook at the rim getting rebounds, but it was because it's the kind of build that he is. You see a guy like Steph Curry get a rebound, and if you really look at it, he's not under the basket all the time getting rebounds. Them rebounds are kind of bouncing his way, and that's where he's getting them from. So when you think about the fact that you don't have to invest any of your attribute points, any of your upgrades in those areas that you don't want to upgrade in because you want to be effective. If you got a center who's out there cleaning the glass, why do you need to be out there cleaning the glass? We don't both need to clean the same glass. So this was one thing I did like, that they decided to add the badges, but at the same time, they kept the idea, the concept behind not having to force me to upgrade rebounding, not forcing me to upgrade a stat that I don't want. Like when it comes down to this two guard is not an inside scorer at all. Now, jump shooter meant that he had he meant he had mid-range, 3-point shooting and some close shooting, right? But inside scoring was under the basket, layups, and post moves, right? So when you look at that kind of build, it's like if you know you're not gonna put your back to the basket, you don't want to waste attribute points because you want your overall to go up in an area that you don't want to waste attribute points. You'd rather be the best player based on the position that you're playing and where you're playing on the court. And so I did enjoy that they added that kind of dynamic of just the badges while keeping the structure in place, even though I still wasn't completely on board with not being able to upgrade the individual attributes. All right, so then we got to 2K17. And to me, I thought 2K17 was where it really went off the rail. So in 2K17, we saw a decent improvement when it comes down to the UI and how everything was clean cut. We also saw that you could get all these badges, but there were 5 badges that were able to get up to Hall of Fame. So the introduction of the Hall of Fame badge really came into play, and we also had park badges and things of that nature. But the reason why I really felt it went off the edge was because this is where we saw the complete caps on each attribute, not just specific attributes, but each attribute had a cap. You had certain attributes that could get all the way up to 25, and then the rest of them could only get up to here. And that meant that you could upgrade each one all the way up to their cap. But the problem was it meant that you couldn't just build any kind of player. You couldn't make adjustments as you went along because the meta changed. Instead, you were stuck with all the hard work that you put in, and you were stuck with that build. So unless you were a shot creator, you were kind of in a bad situation, because shot creators were the only ones that were very well-rounded builds that could do a little bit of everything. And when I say a little bit of everything, I mean like at the least any skill that they had, it had about a 74 overall in that area. And that's one of those things where you look at it, it made you a dominant build across the board. But if you didn't create a shot creator, you were kind of stuck with whatever you had. If you was a big man, you could only grab boards, then you was only out there to grab boards. You felt useless in other areas. And now that's where the skills come in. You get used to being able to shoot your jump shot, time your jump shot. I believe if you got in the rhythm, and none of that should boil down to just attribute points. It really should boil down to the skills on the stick. So we saw that adjustment occur, and then that's when everybody wanted dual archetypes, because they felt that they were being capped with the singular archetype setup and that they couldn't really improve or get better. They wanted a secondary archetype. And then in comes 2K18, and they bring in the dual archetypes. And you look back and say that it's never the point that 2K that didn't listen to their community. It's just that people didn't like the way that they heard it. They didn't like the outcome of the complaints from the community. And here's the problem. I know why that is. It's because you can't please everybody. I thought that 2K18's archetype structure was, without the shadow of a doubt, one that I don't like, mainly because I can never adjust after the fact. Like if I build my build one way because I'm locked into the way the archetype structure goes, then I'm stuck building that way. Now, granted, I'm not mad to a point where it's like, oh, this is BS. I'm looking at it and saying, okay, well, this is the archetype I wanted to go with, so I got to highlight my strengths, mask my weaknesses, and cover up wherever I can for my team. But with this kind of archetype structure, because you were capped, instead of going in the right direction of being able to change your layout, change your dynamic, you were stuck with, this is what you get. This is what you have. So when everybody looked towards 2K19, everybody was happy about 2K19, mainly because the life expectancy of the game itself lasted longer than 2K18. They continue to add events, but the structure pretty much stayed the same. So when 2K19 dropped, they real live kept the same structure. The only thing they added was takeover. So takeover just allowed you to enhance your abilities for your primary and your secondary archetype. Only if you got the 94 could you enhance your secondary. Also, if you got the 94, if you was a pure, you could enhance it beyond that. So when we look at this structure, it's the same. It's the same, just a different look. It's the same as 2K18. It just looks different. Nothing really changed. Point guards and shooting guards could only have the certain primary builds, and then they can have any secondary build. Small forwards was still the king of all builds, and then power forwards and centers, your big men, they were able to only get certain builds as primary and then almost any other build as secondary. Now, when you think about what they did in that aspect, it really didn't change in a way where it improved the game. Where they actually made the game better was adding more things to do within the neighborhood. They added the spin. They added more creativity when it came down to the event. So they kept things going, and that's the only thing that kept the 2K alive. But it was essentially the same game mode. It was essentially the same setup, the same framework from the previous year. So what does that mean moving forward? I think we're going to see a major overhaul. So let's dive into what this major overhaul could be. So when it comes down, what major change we're going to see coming, I think we're going to see a return to old form. So we're going to see a balance of 2K19's current structure of archetypes, but we're going to see it brought in the 2K14 format. And what that means is that, yes, you'll choose an archetype to start off, but that means that archetype will only decide what your starting levels are going to be for each category. And for the most part, you'll be able to build your player out any which way you want. So if you decide you want to start off as playmaker primary / or secondary, it means that you're going to get a boost in ball handling, passing, dunks, and layups, right? But that doesn't mean that you'll be capped with those levels. So effectively, where all these white bars are, they'll all be at the very end, And then once you max one out, the rest of them will only be able to go down to this level. And we'll see a return of upgrade points. So I don't mean that we're going to see VC go away. No, you'll still be using VC to upgrade your character, but we're going to see you have to earn your upgrade points. Those cap breakers are you earning upgrade points, and effectively you'll be able to spend them anywhere you want. Like I said, welcome to the next generation of gaming. Welcome to the next generation of 2K. This is the direction I feel them going, mainly because if they look back at their past, they look at what they did well and what the community liked, and then they look at why the community is complaining. They're always listening to us, and they do make these changes, but we don't agree with the changes because it wasn't implemented the way we wanted it implemented. They only did it the best way they could. So I feel that this year, what they're going to do, since it's the last 2K, official 2K of this generation. Next year, we'll get one more 2K for this generation and maybe one the year after that. But I feel that we're going to see all of these white bars on these builds end up at the end. And then as you max out one, the rest of the white bars will go down to where the next max can be. OK, and as you max out another one, you'll see those white bars go down again. And here's why that's beneficial. If you really take it like that. So let's say, for instance, if you upgrade your mid range to the max like you see here, then that means that the badges you'll be able to get to Hall of Fame would be what's that? Your mid-range Deadeye. What's that? Difficult shots. You'll be able to get those badges to the Hall of Fame because you maxed out this ability. Now, if you max out your 3-point, then that means that you'll be able to get badges to Hall of Fame such as your limitless range, deep range Deadeye. But let's say, for instance, if you max out your dunks and you get posterizer, Lob City finisher, put back king, all of those badges at Hall of Fame, and then you get your 3-point bars up to 20. So let's say this 25 and you get your 3-point bars up to 20. Then that means that you'll be able to get gold for things like deep range Deadeye, limitless range, maybe on silver. I wouldn't give limitless range on unless that puts it above a 90, and that should be depicted on a couple of other factors. But I think that that's the way we're going to see them go. So they're going to find a way to blend 2K14, 2K19, and possibly 2K17's archetype structure, because 2K17 is where the archetype structure went downhill, because 2K17 was where they had it so you could only max out attributes to a certain level based on the type of build you chose. Now, why is that good? Because if we see them blend, I hope that somebody sees that one feature that was in like 2K15, 14, and 16 that was really cool. And that was the feature to equip and unequip certain badges. And that's a game changer all in its own. So you essentially having the ability to change out badges based on who you're going to be matched up with, who you're going to be matched up against, is good in my career. I know some people look at it and say, "Oh, that's terrible," in the pro-am scene or in the competitive scene. But is it really? It really isn't when you think about it, in the aspect that you've always had a build that you wish sometimes you could do this a little bit different, and sometimes you can do that a little bit different. That's the way that. Well, I'm not saying they're going to do that 100%, but I'm saying that there's the possibility that if they looked at it the same way, if they really went back into their history and said, okay, well, where do we start on 2K and on the Xbox One and PS4? Well, let's go to the next level with looking at where do we go down here, where do we go wrong, where do the community feel like we messed up. They listen to us all the time. They listen to us and they make changes accordingly. We're just never satisfied as people. So one thing that I would hope from all of this, though, if they decide to take that route, is if you're going to make it so that way a person can build their build any which way, I would also love it. I kid you not. And I think that the 97% of the community would agree with this one. We would also love it if we can refund points that we spent. And I don't mean that you need to get the whole value back. So let's say, for instance, if you already know that usually that fourth bar costs you like 5,000 VC, right? And let's say you spent that, and then down the line, you're finding that the meta has changed. The different builds, the changing of the builds that are dominant is different. So you want to change your build. And instead of having to create a whole new build, maybe you just refund your points and kind of redistribute them. Now, I'm not saying that you should be getting, like, if you spent 50,000 on your build, then you should be getting 50,000 back. No, let's look at it like the trade-in value of a video game, At least give me something back. Give me something back so that way I don't have to redesign my build all the way over. We already, look, things that shouldn't be able to be changed is things like height. And that's only because people usually have those growth spurts before they get to the NBA, okay? But things like weight, we should be able to adjust along the way. But if we could literally have a game where once you done spent your 50,000 VC and you want to redistribute it because you have this free form upgrade system, then I think that we should really be able to refund it and get like at least more than half of the value back. So 50,000, give a person 30,000 back. Right then and there, you're giving your community a little love. You're showcasing a little support. You want people to be creative with each build. But who knows? We won't find out until next month. I know some of y'all probably looking and say, man, I thought this dude was going to drop some 2K news, which in actuality is nothing to really drop. I'm mainly just looking at the past of 2K and wanted to go over the way, first of all, the way I think that they're going to design the archetype system going into 2K20, and then give you my opinion on if they go this route, what I would love to see. So I hope you all enjoyed it. thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. You know, if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel if you are new. When 2K news actually drop, we're gonna break it down and I'm gonna give it to you the way that only I know how, which is straight lace, like it ain't nobody's business. It's your boy JuKIng the Boss, and I'm gonna catch you guys on the next one. I still got another story coming live for y'all. Hopefully by tomorrow. I'm still gathering information, but I'm gonna catch you guys on the next one. Peace.